It was awful.
Awful.
36 million bucks.
Tilden.
A store that maybe makes a couple hundred
Yeah,
grand a
really.
year.
I mean,
Good morning.
Morning.
Sorry we're starting late. Good morning. Our speaker today is Cynthia Tilden.
So good morning. Thanks for being here. Today we're going to honor Pamela Turner
As loud as you can.
and here's her story. It was late spring 2019, and in a local Houston, Texas paper, people read that Pamela Shantay Turner had passed away on May 13th. Pamela Turner, born April 8th, 1975, died May 13th, 2019. She lived to be 44 years old. Pamela was born and raised in Mississippi. She attended schools in Jefferson County, graduating in the class of 1993. After graduation, she decided to relocate to Baytown, Texas, where she then worked for 20 years as a unit coordinator at a local hospital. She was known to be very loving and family-oriented. Her children and grandchildren were her world, and she was always proud to be their mother. She worked for 20 years as a unit coordinator in a local hospital. She also had an outspoken love for animals. But Turner's health failed. She was diagnosed and suffered from paranoid schizophrenia, a severe mental disorder characterized by a wide range of unusual behaviors. Hearing voices and distorted or false perception, often bizarre beliefs, and prior to 2019, she had been charged with criminal mischief. Criminal mischief is defined differently from community to community, but always involves damage or threat to damage to someone else's property. And in some towns, it only means strange behavior. What's important to Pamela's story, I think, is that her condition was known by the Baytown Police Department and to Officer Juan de la Garza, who fatally shot her on July 5th. So what exactly happened that day? De la Garza was patrolling the apartment complex where he and Turner were neighbors. They lived in the same apartment block. When he spotted Turner and sought to arrest her, end of sentence. His testimony, he was not responding to a call from the police. He was checking up on his own residence. Turner told De La Garza she was just walking back to her apartment and to stop harassing her. She believed he was harassing her. Shortly afterwards, the officer fired his taser at Turner, and while she was on the ground, the department veteran of 11 years backed away and shot Pamela Turner lying on her back 5 times in the face, chest, and stomach. The police allege that while the officer was attempting to handcuff Turner, she grabbed a hold of his taser and fired it in his direction, grazing him. The Baytown Police Department stated publicly that they knew Pamela Turner suffered from mental illness. This scene was partially videotaped by a bystander, and George Floyd's lawyer, Ben Crump, stepped in to represent Turner's family. So, for a short time, Pamela's murder was breaking news. Attorneys for De La Garza alleged the shooting was self-defense. Turner's family alleged that Pamela had been suffering from a mental health crisis at the time, and they also claimed that she would not have been able to manually reload the taser in order to use it against the police officer. So it's a very common story. It's a story that we've heard many times. according to Associated Press in September 2020, over a year after the shooting, a grand jury indicted De La Garza on one count of aggravated assault by a public servant. Kim Ogg, the Harris County DA, said at the time that her office would be moving forward with prosecution. But this is where the story comes to an end. I wasn't actually able to find out anything else about the sentencing of De La Garza, and I found nothing to indicate that the problems of mental health and police training have since been addressed in Baytown, Texas. And I chose this because unless I think that Ben Crumb made news by deciding to represent her, nobody outside of Baytown, Texas would ever have heard this story. And here we have mental illness, police abuse, and if you zoom out, a wider story of what's happening in this country over and over again. And we'd never know about Pamela. Okay, that's one of the reasons I chose it. So, could you join me by kneeling for Pamela Turner for 9 minutes and 20